today. Thank you. I usually don't get that when I run the company. But I'm sure it wasn't for me, so I'll keep this very brief.
No, it's not.
There you go.
Was that Regina or us? No, thank you very much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it on behalf of the Marco Rubio campaign. My name's Jim McGeckran, and I'm running the Derry GOP here and supporter of Marco's, along with several other members of folks that are here. And I know you heard from Celia earlier about all the events and things coming up. And Celia, I hope you mentioned that Marco will be here next Friday. At the Hood School.
Here at Halligan.
Here, not here, in Derry, New Hampshire at the Hood School. That event's 5:30 next Friday night. And did Celia go over the other places he's going to be?
No.
No? Okay. Well, then I guess my introduction might be a tad long.
We have it all this time.
Everybody have everything? We have an Exeter, right? Huh? Do it again? So on February 2nd, we have a rally tomorrow night in Exeter. On February 3rd, at Dover Town Hall at 5 p.m.
Tuesday in Exeter.
On the 4th, at 8 a.m. will be at Portsmouth Town Hall. On the 4th, at 6 p.m. Salem Town Hall. And then in Derry at the Hood School, 5:30 on Friday. And then on the 7th, there's a pancake breakfast in Londonderry at 8:30. And everything's on Eventbrite, so I encourage you to go there and sign up and make sure you hit those events. So without any further ado, I'm actually here to introduce Congressman Trey Gowdy, who spent a lot of time being an attorney, a politician, former prosecutor, and before being elected to Congress, he was the district attorney for the 7th Circuit. And then from 1994 to 2000, he was the federal prosecutor and U.S. attorney for the District of South Carolina. And then in 2014, he became chairman of the House Select Committee, whose main goal was to investigate the 2012 Benghazi incident, and I'm sure that everybody. Everybody's aware of what a great job he did in that committee, and you all watch Marco in the debates. Marco does a fantastic job, and obviously one of the key disqualifiers for one of our Democratic folks, Hillary Clinton, is the results of the Benghazi hearings and what Trey Gowdy did. Yep. So without further ado, Trey Gowdy.
I want to, first of all, thank you for your warm, hospitable, largely undeserved welcome. This is the first time I have ever been to New Hampshire in my life. I've got to come back just because y'all are so nice. I actually moved here. So I just want to start by thanking you for your literal and figurative warmth today. I don't own a coat, and I was worried a little bit. Heaven forbid I look ahead and see what the temperature is going to be when I'm going someplace. This is what I want to do. I'm more interested in what you have to say than I am what I have to say. I rarely endorse in political races. I endorse Tim Scott, who is my closest friend in politics and one of the finest human beings I've ever met. He's our United States Senator. But I didn't endorse in 2012, and I usually don't endorse in statewide races. And I told Senator Rubio that I normally don't, and I'll tell you why. When you live in a participatory democracy, each of us has our own obligation to educate ourselves on the issues and on the candidates, and the last thing in the world you need is someone that you just met who lives in another state to come tell you who you should vote for. You shouldn't let anybody tell you who you should vote for. You owe it to yourselves and to those that sacrificed on our behalf to give us the right to choose our own candidates and our own leaders, to research the issues, research the candidates, I have no idea how you rank the issues in order of significance. I would have no way of knowing that any more than you would know how I rank them. So there's no way I can tell you who to vote for. I do feel comfortable telling you who I am going to vote for and why. I'm going to vote for Marco because the issues that are most important to me, he is either better than the other candidates in my judgment, or at a minimum on par with the candidates on national security, respect for the rule of law, faithful execution of, and when I say national security, I'm including in that border security, interior security, and employment security. I am on the House Judiciary Committee, Subcommittee on Immigration. I'm the author of the toughest interior security bill you will ever read. It is so tough, Steve King and Jeff Sessions like it. Really, they do like it. In fact, Senator Sessions took it and introduced it in the Senate. And graciously, he called ahead of time and said, I want to take this bill to the Senate. Security is a big deal to me, not just because of my background, but if you look at the functions of government, particularly federal government, national security is number one. That's why we have a commander-in-chief. And then if you look further in the Constitution, it says the chief executive should take care that the laws be faithfully executed. So as an old law and order guy that thinks the law is the most unifying, equalizing force we have in our culture, I want a president that's rock solid on national security. I want a president who is rock solid on respect for the rule of law. And I want a president who is rock solid on understanding what the responsibilities and limitations of the executive branch are. And Marco checks all of those boxes for me. So that's number one. He's right on the issues. Number two, he speaks in not just a hopeful and aspirational way, but a persuasive way. And when you've won 1 out of the last 6 popular votes for president, you probably ought to reevaluate the manner in which you're communicating with your fellow citizens. I can tell you, if I had lost 5 out of 6 murder cases, you should fire me. And if your doctor has lost 5 out of 6 murder cases, you'd be dead, but somebody else should fire that. So if what we're doing hasn't proven to be successful, what's wrong with reevaluating the manner in which we communicate with our fellow citizens? I mean, before you can persuade somebody, you have to at least get them to listen to you. And I'm not talking about compromising what you believe. I'm not even talking about not being tough. Anyone who's heard Marco in the debates, he's tough. But he does speak in an aspirational, hopeful way that at least has led me to conclude the times I have been with him, that he is every bit as concerned with the folks in the room he's talking to, in addition to the folks who are in the kitchen preparing the meal that we're about to eat, or the folks that are going to come in and clean up afterwards, or the folks that may be parking the cars in the parking lot. He's got a message that reaches everybody, and I think when the objective is to win, that's okay. Which leads to the third reason I'm supporting him is I think we got one more chance, I think, to fix it. We can't lose in November. So we have to pick somebody that can win in November. I happen to agree with Marco on 95% of the issues. There are a handful where maybe we don't. I gave up a long time ago trying to find a perfect candidate. I married her, but she ain't running for office. That's exactly what she told me to tell you. She's not running for office. So I don't require candidates to be right all of the time for me to support them. I do require that they be honest all of the time for me to support them. And part of honesty means saying that I had this position at one point in my life, but because of new facts and new evidence, I now have a different position. That to me is not weakness. Weakness is saying that I don't care how many facts you give me, and I don't care how much the world changes, I'm never going to surrender this wrong opinion that I have. That is not leadership. I do. It was fine when those political commercials were on Fox, because I don't watch politics, but when they started bleeding over to ESPN, I don't have any choice but to watch political commercials just like the rest of y'all. The notion that every single one of the people running on our side for president has not changed his or her mind on some issue at some point in the last 5 years is laughable. I can promise you I have changed my position. And if San Bernardino and the threat of ISIS and what happened in Boston with the marathon bombing, if that doesn't change you, at least for making you strong to stronger, or this position to that position, I'm not interested in you being my leader if you're not going to change with changing facts. Now, you do need to ask the person, what was the inflection point at which you changed? That's a fair question. If you go from believing this to believing that, you need to be able to explain why you changed and what your inflection point was. So let me just tell you as bluntly as I know how to tell you, as the author of a really tough interior security bill, who thinks national security is the top issue at the federal level, if I didn't think Marco Rubio was rock solid on national security, border security, interior security, and employment security, as nice as y'all are, and as friendly as y'all are, I would not be in New Hampshire right now. I would be back in South Carolina minding my own business if I weren't convinced that he was great on those issues. So, he's good on the issues. I believe he can win, and I think he communicates in a way that touches. I live with two, what do they call themselves? Millennials? Is that what they call them? In my case, I think that is Latin for sleep slate. I live with a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old when they're not in school. And I think it is great that the candidate that I am supporting has a message that also can resonate if they're interested in listening to it with them. So that's what I'm looking for in a candidate, but that's enough for me. I want to hear what's on your hearts and your minds. So questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms? Yes, sir.
Two questions. First is, you're famously quoted saying to one of your counterparts on the select committee, it's strange how you can get a hold of the State Department in 12 hours and over a weekend, and we've been trying forever to do so. We find recently the State Department has asked for more time given a snowstorm in Washington last week. People are getting extremely frustrated to get to the heart of the matter, what's really going on here. Not to get at Hillary Clinton, but to get to the truth. Is it true we're getting the runaround, and what can we do, if anything, to somehow accelerate that process so we can get to the bottom of this, what happened there, and then be done with it? My second question is, first time in New Hampshire, what's your favorite thing you've seen done so far?
What was the second one?
This is your first time to New Hampshire. What is your favorite things you've done or seen so far?
Well, I've only been here about 12 hours. I would take the easy one first. I thought there'd be more snow, to be quite honest with you.
yeah.
It's in Washington. I've been there in 2 weeks. I mean, I think people all across the country, by and large, are friendly, but there are certain states where you just feel more of a warmth. And literally from the time I got off the airplane, and I got to take a picture with a lady at the airport, all the way up till tonight, until your question. Everybody's been really nice. All right, I want you to kind of have a binary approach to the State Department. There are all of the records that she generated as Secretary of State. 90-something percentage of which has nothing to do with Benghazi or Libya. Are you getting the runaround there? Well, of course you are, because they knew that she had private email. They also know she has an obligation to protect the public record. There are FOIA requests, there are citizen requests, there are media requests, there are congressional inquiries about things not called Libya or Benghazi. So how in the world was she supposed to keep the public record And how were they supposed to respond to legitimate requests for information if all of that information was stored on a server in her basement? How was that supposed to happen? So did they know about it? Yes. And frankly, I'm disappointed in John Kerry. You know, John Kerry should be worried about his own. I'm not talking about how crazy his policies are, or bringing James Taylor to sing to a friend. I'm talking about caring enough about his reputation that he doesn't appear to be a sycophant and an acolyte and a defender of his predecessor, which is exactly what it looks like now. I mean, how many people believe that the snowstorm is the reason they weren't able to produce these emails? They wanted to do it on a Friday because it was bad news for her, and you always dump bad news on a Friday, and we still haven't gotten all the emails. So will you get them all? We don't know. You won't know unless there's a Republican in charge of the State Department or a Republican in charge of the Department of Justice. With respect to our relatively small tranche of documents, I'll just put it to you this way. We started asking the Department of State in August of 2014 for the documents that Congress is entitled to. That's August of 2014 we started asking for them. We found out the Friday before you found out that Monday that they didn't have her documents because they were all on a server somewhere and she never bothered to return them. So then you sit there and think, well, you didn't, I mean, if you're investigating the State Department and you're asking for documents, at some point you would think it would come up that they would tell you, look, we can't give them to you because we ain't got them. You would think that would come up at some point. So what we've learned is there was some conversation back and forth between Patrick Kennedy, who now works for the State Department, and a lady by the name of Cheryl Mills, who you may have heard of, who used to work for Secretary Clinton. And they were trying to orchestrate it where it appeared, you remember they wrote 4 different Secretaries of State and said, please return all your documents? They're going to go back to the John Jay and Alexander Hamilton to get the all of that is a ruse to cover for her. The good news is our fellow citizens, most of them have not fallen for it. That's the good news. The bad news is you have a Department of State that really should work for you and it should have nothing to do with politics. It really, I don't know any other way to say it. They're covering for their former boss. And it's sad that it takes a judge to order them to do something, but otherwise it never would have been done. They weren't going to do it for us, and they weren't going to do it for FOIA. Yes, ma'am.
Along the same line, and I'm sure you get these questions all the time, but in your apartment.
Just at home.